The government sells beast eggs for 10 coins each. Unwanted beast eggs are destroyed by the authorities. Last one left. Miss, won't you take it? I'll pass. Having been reborn, I knew that unwanted gray egg would be my doom. I came specifically to witness its destruction, to alter my fate. Never did I expect the man to thrust the beast egg into my arms. Miss, this egg is for you. Clearwater Village is remote, and official sales are infrequent. Every sale becomes a mad rush when it opens. Any adult can own a contracted beast, be it for companionship or chores. In my past life, father made me queue up early to get one. When I arrived, the line was already packed. Thought I'd missed my chance again this time, but everyone ahead of me kept shaking their heads in refusal. When my turn came, only one unwanted little gray egg remained. One. The appearance of a beast egg often indicates the strength of its contracted familiar. Each person can only contract one familiar at a time. So nobody wants to end up with a weak one. While contracts can be dissolved, termination takes a year, and forming a new contract requires another full year. No one's willing to take that kind of risk, so this plain-looking little gray egg was rejected by everyone. Last one left. Miss, want it? Will you destroy the beast eggs no one chooses? After getting confirmation from the officials, I pulled out the 10 copper coins I'd painstakingly saved. It's still a living being. Let's save it. I carefully carried the beast egg home, and Dad froze for a moment when he saw it. Why'd you pick such an unremarkable one? Well, I kinda like it. Day after day, I tended to him with utmost care, gently wiping away every speck of dust from his shell. 10 days later, the first cracks of his hatching began to appear. My heart raced with excitement as I gazed upon the Covenant array. When the light faded, those mesmerizing violet eyes completely captivated me. I can't bear to see him lift a finger. I bustle about attending to his every need, just to earn his smile. A single smile from him brightens my whole day. When he said he wanted to see the world, I followed him out of Qingshui village without hesitation. Hearing of the capital's splendor, he pestered us relentlessly to go there. On the journey, we chanced upon Princess Valeria. The reigning princess was notorious for her domineering ways, with countless male beastmen having fallen into her clutches. The moment Princess Valeria laid eyes on him, she was captivated by his striking appearance. A beastman of such striking looks deserves better than some country bumpkin like you. I'll give you 1,000 taels. How about selling him to me? I refused. Of course, between wealth and him, I choose him. The orc by Princess Valeria's side put in a good word for me, and that settled the matter. I failed to notice the emotions flickering in his eyes, looking back. He was probably already scheming how to get rid of me, otherwise, we wouldn't have kept running into Princess Valeria time and again. The way Princess Valeria looked at him made my blood boil, so I deliberately stepped between them. But you can't stop someone who's determined to throw themselves at another. We'd barely set foot in the capital when they came for us. While I was being tortured in that dungeon, he was busy canoodling with Princess Valeria. I didn't realize I was the only one imprisoned. With every lash, I clenched my teeth, fighting to keep silent. I couldn't let him hear my torture. I feared he'd surrender. Why refuse the princess? Is some beastman worth this suffering? I want him and him alone. They kept cycling through different torture devices on me, over and over. Eventually even the executioner couldn't bear to watch and secretly lightened his blows. When I dragged my freshly wounded body back to the cell, there was a new inmate beside me. How did a beast egg like you end up in prison? Seems Princess Valeria's new favorite really knows how to please her, otherwise that woman would never have abandoned this beast egg, said the orc imprisoned across from me. Rumor has it he was originally taken by force by Princess Valeria too. After making a mistake, he was thrown into the dungeons by Princess Valeria. The tribute bearers claimed this was a dragon's egg, the only one of its kind in existence. Princess Valeria tried every conceivable method to hatch this stubborn egg, yet it refused to crack open no matter what she attempted. Back then, any of us would have gotten whipped for daring to touch it. Now look how it's been discarded here like trash. The orc finished with a self-deprecating chuckle. I reached out and patted the egg's uneven surface. You and I are quite alike, both stubborn as mules, day after day. I lost count of how long I'd been imprisoned. When the pain became unbearable, I'd had that beast egg to keep my spirits up. If blood stained its shell, I'd wipe it clean with my sleeve. Sorry about this, I've gotten you dirty again. 2. Princess Valeria sent messengers twice, but each time I refused to dissolve my contract with him. That night in the prison cell, I saw those familiar violet eyes again. His attire was exquisite, radiating nobility from head to toe. Now I understood why he never responded whenever I called out to him in the cell. So that's how it was. Vivian, break the contract and I'll have you released. Haven't I treated you well? I glared at him with icy eyes. Fine, but that's not the life I want. A cold smirk curled my lips. All my kindness toward him might as well have been thrown to the dogs. As long as I don't break this contract, he'll remain bound to me every single day. It's satisfying to know this unsettles them. What will it take for you to break the contract? You want me to bless your union? In your dreams, then don't blame me for what happens next. It was the first time I'd seen such venom and hatred in his expression. Princess Valeria brought her own chair. She sat outside the cell, watching the cane strike me again and again. Speak up if you change your mind. I'm merciful. I don't take lives. Thwack, 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 crack. They broke several wooden rods, beating me until I was barely alive. The cell echoed only with the sound of clubbing blows. I'd rather die than talk. He didn't lay a hand on me. The pact shields him from harm, but as long as this contract stands, my death will cost him half his cultivation. I despise him. Right now, I'd gladly suffer 1,000 losses just to make him bleed 800. The beast egg suddenly rolled aside, as if desperately trying to shield me. After taking 2 hits from me, the eggshell began glowing faintly around its edges. Is it about to hatch? But I can't hold on any longer. I'll never get to see your human form, miss. Don't dismiss him as leftover stock. What matters most in a contract beast is strength. Judging by this contract glow, he's the real deal. I've seen enough to know. The surrounding crowd craned their necks as the contract array lit up. The surrounding noise snapped me out of my thoughts. I knew he wouldn't disappoint, but that's exactly why I'm afraid, because he's not weak. Even though I didn't choose him again, he's still tangled up in my life. What a cursed fate. We must not repeat the mistakes of the past this time. The light gradually dimmed. Those familiar violet eyes gazed at me quietly, just as they had in our past life. That piercing stare sent shivers down my spine. Are you my master? The contract is sealed now. We'll have to wait a full year to dissolve it. Seeing me walk away, he obediently trailed behind. Vivian, did you get the beast eggs? I let out a sigh. Father leaned in to look. The moment I saw him, my eyes filled with awe. This beast egg formed a contract so quickly. There was a slight mishap. Father circled around him again and again before nodding in satisfaction. The radiance emanating from him was truly beyond what ordinary beastmen could achieve. Have you picked a name? Call him Loren. Loren, a cast-off. Perfect for him. He froze momentarily upon hearing the name, but quickly regained his composure. This time, I won't indulge him anymore. Every morning I'd rouse him to chop firewood and light the stove. After he wrecked my kitchen for the 3rd time, I decided to teach him a proper lesson. I borrowed money to buy a beast-taming whip from the treasure pavilion. After lash upon lash, he finally managed to cook something barely edible. There's always this indescribable emotion in the way he looks at me. It feels like he's seeing someone else through me. Vivian, were you always this violent before? He said it without a trace of hatred in his eyes. What, did I hit you too hard? 3. No, you were right to hit me. I wasn't good enough. His current attitude makes it hard to connect him with that arrogant orc from our past life, remembering everything that happened. Just seeing those violet eyes irritates me. Yet Father treats him with great warmth, often buying him the food orcs love. His true form is a tincture serpent, and he's terrified of centipedes. I often hide live centipedes in his favorite dishes, the big, fat ones. Vivian, you've made a pact with him. You should really try to get along. That's my father's constant refrain lately. I agreed verbally, but my actions still showed hostility toward him at every turn. I made him do hard labor to earn silver for me. Money I plan to use for my journey later. Seeing me pack my clothes, he couldn't help but ask, "Are you going somewhere?" "Yes, I'm planning to take you out to see the world." Sensing his resistance, I felt puzzled. Last time he was the one who wanted to explore the world. Why is he refusing now that I'm suggesting it? Doesn't matter if he's willing or not, I'm taking him with me regardless. That 1,000 taels of silver is waiting for me. This trip wasn't for sightseeing. I timed it perfectly to return to where I first met Princess Valeria, to better catch Princess Valeria's eye. I even bought him new clothes in advance. Just as expected, Princess Valeria was instantly captivated by his appearance the moment she saw him, but this time, he seemed unusually resistant. That fleeting flash of hatred in his eyes was directed at Princess Valeria, though he hid it well. I still caught it. This is clearly their first meeting in this lifetime. Where does this hatred come from? A sudden thought crossed my mind. Princess Valeria asked just as she had in our past life. How about I give you 1,000 taels to sell him to me? I feigned hesitation and replied, the contract hasn't reached its first year yet. I'd need considerable time before termination. No matter, if you're willing, simply return with me and wait it out. Loren suddenly grabbed my arm with such force that it hurt. I frowned in displeasure and swatted his hand away. Turning to Princess Valeria with a smile, I asked, may I have some time to consider? Very well. I shall depart at noon tomorrow. I hope to hear a satisfactory answer before my departure. Princess Valeria reached out to touch Loren before leaving. Loren seemed to have anticipated it, sidestepping the contact. Why do you hate her? He stared at me in shock, clearly taken aback by my question. I cut straight to the chase. I saw a flicker of hatred in your eyes when you looked at her. Vivian, would you believe me if I told you something? Go on. Had I not been curious about the source of that hatred, I would have accepted Princess Valeria's thousand tales long ago. After much hesitation, he finally spoke up. Actually, I've been reborn, but to conceal myself, I still put on a face of utter disbelief. I know this sounds unbelievable, but trust me, everything I'm about to say is true. In our past life, we were deeply in love. During a trip together, we encountered Princess Valeria, who went so far as to tear me away from you and even had you imprisoned. I even debased myself to her in hopes of saving you, yet she beat you to death right before my eyes. The trauma shattered my cultivation, leaving me in perpetual despair until my untimely demise. The sickening tenderness in those violet eyes nearly made me retch. What an exquisite fabrication. My voice turned glacial. So you just stood there watching them bludgeon me to death. He was momentarily speechless. Then explained, she had me bound with beast ropes, I couldn't move a muscle, so this is the consequence of refusing Princess Valeria back then. Seeing his nod, I sneered, then it seems refusal isn't an option this time. I cut him off before he could finish. He tricked me, so I'll trick him back. That's only fair. Changing my usual attitude, I spoke to him gently. You don't want to see me die horribly again, do you? Since she treated us like that in our past lives, why don't you seek revenge for what happened before? There's definitely bad blood between those two. Since he won't talk, let them tear each other apart. Saves me the trouble of making excuses. I've got plans for that thousand tales. I need to talk some sense into him. Only if he stays true to his past self can my plan proceed. We could pretend to agree with her first. Wouldn't staying by Princess Valeria's side give you the perfect position for revenge? The contract remains intact anyway. You can return whenever you choose. You truly won't abandon me. Didn't you say we were deeply in love in our past life? How could I ever leave you? To make this statement more convincing, fighting back my discomfort, I took his hand and held it tightly in mine. My agreement brought Princess Valeria great joy, considering the bond between us remained until the contract's dissolution. I proposed accompanying Princess Valeria on her return. I won't leave until the day the contract is broken. Welcome home, Your Highness. Rows of orcs stood in perfect formation on both sides, stretching as far as the eye could see. I finally understood the true meaning of legion beyond counting. The rumors didn't do it justice. Beyond awe, I couldn't help but marvel at Princess Valeria's prowess. All but one contracted beast stayed willingly. For, unbelievable, that beating with sticks demands careful retaliation planning. Attendants, see to my honored guests' comfort. The princess's estate was so vast it was exhausting just to walk across. Princess Valeria provided me with an orcish mount, and I casually inquired, with so many orcs here, there must be plenty of orc eggs too. No, Her Highness possesses only one unhatched orc egg. Have you seen it? He nodded earnestly. That beast egg has always been kept in Her Highness's bedchamber. We've all seen it. The princess treasures it dearly. Fingering the thousand-tael banknote, I silently prayed, Loren, you'd better not let me down. From the day I moved into the princess's manor, I deliberately started getting close to those beastmen, especially those who've fallen out of favor, that way they won't draw unwanted attention. I don't believe all orcs here are like Loren. Any orc taken by force will inevitably harbor resentment. No matter how well you disguise it, resentment remains resentment. The slightest show of reluctant compliance would earn me their sympathy. Once those feelings grew strong enough, they became my informants. Miss Vivian, Her Highness is away from the manor today. Now would be the perfect time to seek your beastman. Thank you. I slipped out of the house and stealthily made my way to the princess's chambers. No orc would dare enter the princess's quarters without permission, so I seized the moment to retrieve the beast eggs I'd prepared earlier. I held the two rough-shelled eggs, one in each hand. Apart from a slight weight difference, it's nearly impossible to tell the real from the fake with the naked eye. Truly a master forger's masterpiece. Those 800 taels were well spent. What are you doing? Came a familiar voice suddenly from behind. My whole body shuddered as my heart pounded like a drumbeat passing through a crowd. I never expected Loren to barge into the royal chambers, let alone catch me in the act of swapping the beast egg. Loren, I was at a complete loss for words, utterly unprepared to explain myself. 5, he demanded. What are you doing with that beast egg, and why is there an identical one here? I only did this for your sake. In the lull between thoughts, I quickly stashed the real beast egg into my bag and replaced it with the replica. For me, indeed, I heard Princess Valeria treasures this beast egg dearly. I feared its sudden hatching might jeopardize your standing with her, so I specially commissioned this counterfeit for the switcheroo. You've never seen this beast egg before, have you? How did you commission its creation? All the beast folk have seen it. I relied on their descriptions and went through several revisions to recreate this identical one. Truth is, I never needed the beast folks' accounts at all. Back then, I slept embracing it every night. I remember every single vein on that eggshell as clearly as day. To avoid arousing Loren's suspicion, I had no choice but to throw myself into his arms. Loren, I've missed you so much. Being apart these days made me realize how much I actually can't bear to be without you. Do you think I was unkind to you before? Loren held me close and shook his head, saying, Never, you're the only one who's ever truly been good to me, but I heard Princess Valeria is quite fond of you. You wouldn't let that distract you from our mission, would you? Don't worry, I'll make sure you get your revenge. Ah, you're so sweet, Loren. Before leaving, I stole several longing glances back at him for good measure. Not until I was certain he couldn't see me anymore. Only then did I dash back inside at full speed to bathe and change. Gazing at the beast egg floating in the tub center, I tapped it gently with my finger. I've sacrificed so much for you, but at least I've freed you from that living hell. Don't worry, I'll get you out safely. A string of tiny bubbles suddenly surfaced, startling me into immediately picking it up to inspect. There aren't even any cracks on the eggshell. Where did these bubbles come from? Looking left and right, I even asked nervously, You didn't drown on me, did you? I pressed the beast egg against my ear, listening quietly for any movement inside. Only after confirming faint sounds from the egg did I dare to breathe normally again. As long as you're okay. Lying in bed, I stared at that egg in the distance for what felt like ages. In the end, I decided to bring it over and sleep with it, back in the cell. I used to fall asleep holding this egg every single night. Now that it's right here, not holding it feels strangely wrong. I kept it hidden in my bundle by day, only taking it out secretly at night. Bear with it for these few days. In 3 days, Princess Valeria will attend the palace banquet. That's when I'll sneak you out to safety. I woke up the next morning completely stunned. The egg cracked. I thought this monster egg was indestructible. How could it break so easily? How could I have crushed it? Tears welled up in my eyes as I cradled the broken shell. I'm so sorry, I whispered mournfully. This is all my fault. I shouldn't have slept while holding you. Sniff. I really didn't mean to crush you. Suddenly, a soft chuckle reached my ears. I whirled around to see a strange man sitting calmly in a chair, locking eyes with me. His aura was identical to the eggshell in my hand. I pointed at him and stammered, Why you're that monster egg. 6. He curled his index finger and wrapped it against my forehead. No wonder you got bullied to death. You're so dense. Wait a minute, why did he say it's no wonder I'd be bullied to death? Could it be? I gasped. So you're the one who brought me back to life. He didn't answer, but the faint smile on his lips told me everything. So he was genuinely trying to protect me back then. Overwhelmed, I threw my arms around him, 1,000 words of gratitude condensed into the simplest phrase, Thank you, but that Tingsha serpent has also been reborn, I know. What trouble could a mere flying serpent possibly cause? He suddenly frowned and asked, Don't tell me your contracted beast is still that same old Tengu. Got it. My smile froze on my face. This question is so awkward. I don't want to answer. TCH, how pathetic, so embarrassing. Can't let him think I'm desperate for that Ting snake. I'd better explain the whole situation clearly and quickly. Want me to take him out for you? No, I still have uses for Loren. Why is he giving me that weird look? I'm not going. Does he think I'm lying to him? But I thought I'd explained it perfectly clearly. A soft knock suddenly sounded at the door. Miss Vivian, Her Highness requests your presence. Very well, I'll be right there after getting ready. Before leaving, I repeatedly warned Eldar to keep quiet, and absolutely forbade him from stepping outside the door. His looks were far more striking than Lauren's. If Princess Valeria were to spot him, all my efforts to save him would have been for nothing. The plan to send him away in 3 days will have to be put on hold for now. Beast eggs are easy to carry, but people aren't. Not all those orcs have turned traitor yet. I'll need to bide my time. When I went to see Princess Valeria, Loren was standing by as well. Princess Valeria traced the rim of her cup absently with slender fingers. After a long pause, she finally spoke. Do you know why I summoned you? This humble girl knows not. This beast man holds you in such high regard. Though your contract is less than a year old, he thinks of nothing but your kindness. Tell me, how should I deal with him? If Princess Valeria really wanted to punish her, she could have done it outright. Dragging me here like this clearly wasn't about settling scores. I refused to be part of their little games. I snapped. How could this be, Loren? The princess's kindness toward you is as clear as day. How could you be so ungrateful? Since you're still my contracted beast, I'll teach you a proper lesson on her behalf. I grabbed the nearby taming whip and moved to strike Loren. He stared at me in disbelief. Could he have been reborn too? What's with the attitude? Take your punishment like a man. You brought this on yourself by displeasing Her Highness. I swung with all my might. That's the only way to honor myself. The whip struck Loren with pinpoint accuracy, instantly staining flesh crimson. With an opportunity this perfect, I won't hold back. The moment Loren cried out, Princess Valeria's heart instantly ached for him. Shameless couple. I struck again without giving Princess Valeria a chance to speak. When the princess disciplines you, you take it. That cry of yours, dare you still resist? Then I shall beat you on Her Highness's behalf until you learn your lesson. Rest assured, Princess Valeria, since you've summoned me today, I shall thoroughly discipline him for you. Not a single worry shall trouble you further. Every word I spoke made it clear this beating was delivered in Princess Valeria's name. Princess Valeria attempted to speak several times, but I cut her off each time. The whip cracked sharply in my hand. A smirk played on my lips as I watched Loren seethe in silent fury, filling me with wicked satisfaction. Is Princess Valeria pleased? Should your anger remain unquenched, I'd gladly continue the thrashing for you, and no, that won't be necessary, rubbing my sore arm. I finally lowered the whip with satisfaction. That night, I sent someone with premium healing salve to Loren, along with a letter to clear my name. I was gambling on his hatred for Princess Valeria. Having spent considerable time by Princess Valeria's side, Loren could approach her far more easily than I just need to bide my time. 7. Eldar was the wild card in this entire plan. I can't just ignore a full-grown person suddenly appearing in my house. It was so adorable when it was just an egg. Who knew transforming would make you this shameless? I'm taking the bed. If you don't like it, go sleep on the floor. When I went to fetch bedding for the floor, he started messing with me on purpose. Stay calm, stay calm. Why bother getting angry with an orc? The whole farce finally ended with me agreeing to sleep on the inner side. In the dead of night, I suddenly woke with a start. Outside, voices clamored and lights blazed brightly. Trouble brewing. Stay here. I'll check it out. The orcs were rushing toward Princess Valeria's chambers. I followed behind to get a quick rundown of the situation. Loren committed lèse majesty against Princess Valeria and was subdued on the spot by her contracted beast, just as I thought. TSK, didn't expect him to lose his cool so easily. Valeria, don't flatter yourself thinking everyone likes you. You're just a vile, disgusting piece of trash. By the time I arrived, the situation was already under control. Loren had blood trickling from the corner of his mouth, his arms pinned by the orcs. Princess Valeria sat glaring venomously at Loren, her right hand clutching her neck as blood seeped relentlessly between her fingers. How dare you wound me? I'll make sure you die screaming. Huh, you think I'm afraid? This time I'll drag you down with me. Loren spat as he broke free from the orc restraining him. In his primal form, Loren still possessed considerable combat prowess. With so many orcs surrounding them, he posed absolutely no threat to Princess Valeria. I exchanged a knowing glance with the orc beside me. They subtly shifted positions, shielding me from view. I slipped silently behind the princess, gripping the dagger an orc had handed me. Princess Valeria was completely focused on Loren, oblivious to the danger approaching from behind. I took a deep breath and plunged the dagger into her back. A piercing scream followed. She whirled around with a gaze that could flay me alive. Seeing my success, Loren burst into unrestrained laughter. Ha ha, did you really think she'd willingly give me up to you? Let me tell you, it was all an act, every bit of it. Understand? Princess Valeria panicked for real now, desperately stuffing hemostatic pills into her mouth. Her fingers trembled as she pointed at me. 8. Kill her, you. The orcs surrounding her remained motionless. While those attacking Loren suddenly turned their attention toward me, Valeria stared at the orcs in disbelief, demanding, Why won't you move? A sinister smile played on my lips, my eyes gleaming with bloodlust. Ha, isn't it obvious? They've betrayed us. With these orcs around, Princess Valeria's loyalists wouldn't reach her in time. The dagger plunged into her flesh again and again, just like that wooden stick beating down on me again and again. I originally intended to wait for a more opportune moment to act, never thought Loren would confront her prematurely. Guess I'll advance this orc uprising ahead of schedule. You should have seen this coming when you abused your power to seize bonded beasts. Today I shall avenge the fallen beastkin whose souls you shattered, and sacrifice your wretched life for the innocent lives you've slaughtered. Valeria's face turned ashen, her breathing grew ragged, and her body began convulsing uncontrollably, until she finally collapsed from her chair onto the floor. The beastkin erupted into fiercer combat, while her contracted beast went berserk in its frenzy to kill me. Watching these orcs desperately shielding me, my heart was filled with conflicting emotions. My original plan never intended for them to sacrifice their lives, but now, Valeria is dead. You should leave this place immediately, but if we leave, you owe me nothing, just go. Some sought vengeance for their master, while others simply wanted their freedom back. With Valeria dead, they've gotten what they wanted. I can't repay you for sacrificing your lives here. We'll cover your escape. Though the man is dead, the grudge lives on. Those orcs won't let me off easily, especially since it was a princess who died. The royal family will hunt me down. That's exactly why I kept Loren by her side, to pin everything on him when the time came. He's thrown a wrench in my plans. For now, we'll just have to play it by ear. All right, TCH, weren't you supposed to go check it out? What's got you so hooked at this ungodly hour that you won't leave? Eldar materialized as if a deity descending upon the mortal realm. His white robe stood in stark contrast against the bloodshed, that roguish glint in his eyes still carrying a hint of amusement. The scene froze for mere seconds at his arrival before the assault came crashing toward him. He sidestepped with a quick dodge. He sauntered toward me with nonchalance, casually kicking Valeria's lifeless body on the ground. 9. Good, stone dead. Loren cut him off, shielding me just in time. Eldar sent him flying with just a wave of his hand, leaving me wide-eyed in shock. That powerful. He took my hand and said, "Come on, let's go to bed." Every obstacle in his path was instantly obliterated. The power gap is overwhelmingly vast, Vivian. Loren gritted through the pain as he struggled to his feet. Eldar halted when he noticed me freeze mid-step, almost got distracted by Eldar's aura. "I still have unfinished business." The orcs hesitated to approach. Seeing the Eldar by my side, I strode up to Loren and slapped him across the face, sending his already unsteady body teetering on the edge of collapse. "Do you have any idea how many lives your actions have cost today? Why did you suddenly attack Valeria? Speak up. Cat got your tongue." Loren's eyes burned crimson, overflowing with seething hatred for Valeria. "She betrayed you." I couldn't help but roll my eyes at him. If he really cared about me, he wouldn't have stood by and even poured fuel on the fire back then. That nonsense about having an epiphany after my death wouldn't fool a ghost. Loren wouldn't have acted rashly unless Valeria did something to provoke him. There's no way this happened because Valeria didn't intervene during the day. Then what's the real reason? Eldar suddenly spoke up. "If you're curious, just ask me." No need to waste words with him, Wondering why he suddenly lashed out, Eldar's lips curled into a smirk, his malicious intent glaringly obvious. Probably said something he didn't want to hear, like exchange, perhaps. Loren's expression visibly darkened when Eldar uttered that word. Eldar couldn't care less about his reaction and deliberately announced loudly, "After all, that woman despised him for losing half his cultivation. She sold him to the pleasure house that very night for entertainment." His look of utter disbelief only served to confirm Eldar's words. Loren clearly never expected Eldar would know about his past life. "You're lying, Vivian. Don't listen to his nonsense. I resented her because of you. I knew how good you'd been to me, and I regretted it instantly. I'm done pretending now." I called out his past life name directly. "Linyu, drop the act." The successive shock sent him collapsing to the ground. He kept shaking his head, muttering, "No, impossible. How could you know that name? The contract was an accident to begin with. I originally came to witness your destruction. You're not the only one who's been reborn, but you said you missed me, that you couldn't bear to let me go. Why take a performance meant for the occasion so seriously?" Loren suddenly looked up, as if everything had become clear. No wonder you don't treat me like you did in our past life. So you genuinely wanted to sell me out to that woman?" "Absolutely. I laid out the entire plan without hesitation. It was useless now anyway." Loren suddenly burst into maniacal laughter, blood dripping from his mouth in a horrifying spectacle. "Pity, you'll still have to die with us." The sudden appearance of the serpent's tail left me no time to dodge. The expected pain never came. When I opened my eyes, I saw Eldar gripping the serpent's tail and flinging it aside. "Think I'm just for decoration." The blow sent Loren crashing to the ground. A packed beast and its master should share the closest bond. Pity I chose the wrong person. Under Eldar's suppression, he ultimately met his end by my hand. The contract seal flashed briefly beneath me. I knew that meant the contract had been voided, with past lives settled. It's time to deal with those orcs now, aside from those who wanted to leave anyway. Many remained loyal to Princess Valeria, unwilling to forsake their life of luxury. The dead are beyond saving, and royal sins aren't yours to bear. Take the gold and live the life you choose. The road ahead is long and treacherous, but freedom shall be yours the moment you step beyond the princess's manor tonight. The beast folk who had insisted on staying to protect me began departing one after another. Even those who were wavering in their decision eventually joined the exodus. 10. The remaining beastfolk exchanged uneasy glances, while some glared at me with resentment. Most wore expressions of utter bewilderment. "If you're lost, you're welcome to follow me. I won't ask anything of you, nor restrict your freedom. Leave whenever you wish. I shall follow you as well." With Eldar joining, many orcs began nodding in agreement, so I took them on an impromptu journey through the mountains and rivers that very night. Overnight, the princess's estate stood empty. Not a single corpse remained, only signs of struggle. Whispers spread through the streets. Princess Valeria had vanished, along with her beastfolk companions. Not a single living soul remained in the manor. Even the royal family found no opening to intervene in the investigation. Ugh, Eldar rushed aside again, vomiting violently as I hurried over to pat his back and help him catch his breath. Ugh, gross, that disgusting. Who do you think I'm doing this for, you ungrateful little brat? That night Eldar revealed his true form, a white dragon circling in the sky. The dragon devours all. He swallowed his disgust and cleaned up the mess for me. The rain poured down in an instant, washing away every trace of blood. A year later, I could form new beast contracts again. Many orcs seek to bond with me, yet I've kept that place reserved. Eldar, form the pact. Eldar, form the pact. No, Eldar, let's make a pact. Vivian, you're so annoying. I don't want to be your contracted beast. He lightly tapped my head and replied with a hint of complaint, figure it out yourself. Story 2. My nephew destroyed my game account with 10,000 hours of playtime. He controlled my character to massacre the entire tribe, mocking me for being naive and foolish enough to max out the favorability of ordinary NPCs. My mother also slapped me, shielding him protectively in her arms. She said it's just a stupid game, nowhere near as important as blood-related family, but they didn't know that the game would merge with the real world, and all NPCs would descend upon reality. What they personally destroyed wasn't the slim chance of survival I had worked 8 long years to obtain, it was their own lives. 1. When I returned home, I noticed someone had tampered with the game cartridges in the cabinet. I immediately turned on the computer to check the account. Thankfully, the save file was still there. Wait, no. After witnessing the devastating situation in the game, my whole body started trembling violently. The once peaceful village was now filled with charred houses. The NPCs I usually see were standing dumbfounded in place, covered in wounds and blood. I tried to approach them, but their expressions remained blank as they retreated several steps in apparent terror. These were just ordinary NPCs without any boss-level abilities. If someone swung a blade at them, they could only endure it helplessly. Even with their intelligence, they couldn't comprehend why someone who had smiled at them for so long would suddenly raise a butcher's knife against them. My heart feels as if it's being torn apart. The game is set up to be extremely realistic. Some can endure bleeding and injuries, but if not treated in time, these NPCs will die and be replaced by randomly generated new characters. After all, with their identical faces, no one would care anyway, except for me. I've played this game for a full 10,000 hours. Every flower and tree inside, I've watched grow from nothing. Every day I greet the NPCs inside, and for those without names, I've given them code names. After enduring prolonged calamities, we finally managed to survive on this harsh land and enjoyed a period of peaceful years. It could have continued like this forever, but now, everything has been destroyed. The instigator didn't even show the slightest hint of remorse. He used the blood from slaughtering NPCs as paint to cover the entire wall with profanities. Naya naya naya, so-and-so was here. Also, Auntie here didn't like the junk in your backpack, so I destroyed it all. You're welcome. My gaze froze on the term auntie. The culprit behind all this was my nephew, too. I stormed into the living room with overwhelming fury. My mother had just finished cooking and brought the dishes to the table, tearing off a whole chicken leg for my nephew. Here, little treasure, have this chicken leg, grow up big and strong. My nephew immediately reached up to take it and began chewing heartily without a second thought. The mother looked at him with loving eyes and scolded jokingly. Grandma's cooking is delicious, isn't it? What's the hurry? The remaining chicken leg is yours too. Since childhood, Mother always gave the chicken legs to my elder brother, never to me, and now it's the same tradition with my brother's son. On what grounds? With old and new grievances intertwined. I grabbed him by the collar and dragged him toward the dining table, slamming him onto the floor. My mother screamed and rushed over. Rain, what are you doing? My nephew cried in pain, kicking at me wildly and scratching me with his long nails, leaving several bright red marks on my elbow. His scream was so piercing it felt like it would rupture my eardrums. Evil aunt, stinky aunt, trying to steal my chicken leg, you vile woman, drop dead already. Just as I was about to hit him, my mother slapped me hard across the face, swift, decisive, without hesitation. It seems the choice between me and her grandson is quite obvious, taking advantage of my days. She swiftly snatched her nephew from my arms, cradling him protectively while blowing on him with tender concern. She glared at me furiously. Have you lost your mind? This is your nephew. If you have any grievances, direct them at me. It's just a chicken leg. Look at your petty, calculating behavior. Have I ever shortchanged you or what? Going crazy for no reason all day long. I pulled out my game console and spoke coldly, word by word. Who cares about chicken legs? Ask your precious grandson what he's done. Did I ever allow him to touch my things? He destroyed 10,000 hours of my gaming progress. A flicker of guilt flashed across my mother's face, but it vanished in an instant. Then she started shouting even louder. What's the big deal letting your nephew play with it? What's so precious about your stuff? You throw a fit over the slightest touch, after all the years this family raised you. And now you're making trouble for your own family. What a sin. With his grandmother backing him up, the nephew's previously aggrieved expression vanished completely, revealing a triumphant smirk. He chimed in with my mom. Exactly, Auntie, your stupid game isn't even fun anyway, but you can kill NPCs, they don't even fight back. It's hilarious. The boy snickered, revealing 2 large front teeth like a cunning rat in a ditch, his tone dripping with nonchalance. But not as ridiculous as you, Auntie. You actually had nothing better to do than max out the affection levels of these trash NPCs. Since you're so bored, It shouldn't matter if you start over from scratch. I clenched my fists. I was afraid that if he said one more word, I wouldn't be able to stop myself from going to the kitchen to get a knife, pulling out his tongue, and cutting it off. I held back again and again before finally pushing them out the door with all my strength. Get the hell out of my house, both of you. Don't even think about crossing this threshold again. My nephew shrank back at my roar, then opened his mouth and began to wail theatrically. Grandma, she's being mean to me. Why won't she let me in the house? What right does a woman have to own property? This is my house, mine. My mom's face darkened after being publicly humiliated. She shook off my hand and shrieked, "You've grown too big for your boots. Buying a house in secret and not letting us live here. Yet your brother still doesn't have a place of his own. How can you be so selfish? It was just playing with your games, and you took it out on your nephew." Her face flushed red as she snatched the game console from my hands and hurled it out the window with all her might. "It's just a stupid game. How could it ever compare to family bonds thicker than blood?" 3. I rushed downstairs in a hurry. Fortunately, no one was injured by the object my mother threw from above. But that game console lay lonely on the lawn, having fallen from the 28th floor, its parts shattered into pieces, completely unrecognizable. Despite the sharp fragments, I carefully gathered them up. My mother and nephew arrived as well. My mother sneered, "It's broken beyond repair, and you still want to fix it? You're truly obsessed." My nephew hid behind my mother and said hypocritically, "Auntie, I'm really sorry. I didn't realize you treasured that game so much. It's all my fault. And I even caused Grandma to argue with you." My mother immediately waved her hand and said, all right. Did you hear Jackson apologize to you? Let's just drop this matter and move on. We'll still be coming to your place on weekends since it's closer to Jackson's tutoring class, so the kid can sleep in a bit more in the mornings." Seeing me ignore her and continue collecting the fragments of the game console, she said impatiently, "Hey, I'm talking to you. Are you pretending to be deaf?" I straightened up and said calmly, "Are you feeling quite pleased with yourselves? I could easily pick him up and throw him downstairs just like you threw my game console. Do you know why I didn't do that? It's not because I pity his worthless life, but because I have more public decency than you. I don't care if your grandson dies, but other people's bright futures shouldn't be ruined in an instant. Did it ever occur to you that throwing a game console could kill someone?" Hearing my words, a cold glint flashed in my young nephew's eyes as he said sinisterly, "Are you really going to let Grandma go to jail? If someone actually gets hit when the police come, I'll say it was you who threw it, with no surveillance cameras. Who can prove otherwise? At such a young age, he's already this malicious." My face turned icy as I clenched the sharp shard in my hand, advancing step by step. My mother shielded him behind her like a hen protecting her chicks. She shouted guiltily, "Rain, kids are just fooling around. Why bother taking it seriously?" I smiled. "Me taking it seriously? Of course I won't take it seriously with him. Letting him die like this would be too easy. What if I told you that the game you destroyed will eventually merge into our world?" I walked over and patted my nephew's shoulder, leaning down to whisper in his ear, "The time will come when the fear of death will be yours to face." My nephew puckered his lips to spit on my face, but I slapped him before he could react. Staggering, he was pushed to the ground and burst into loud, pitiful sobs. This time, my mother didn't dare provoke me. She cursed, "Psycho," before grabbing my nephew and storming off while muttering complaints. Only I stood still, holding those fragments, gazing up at the sky. Dark clouds gathered, with thunder and lightning flashing. In just a few short hours, this place seemed to have transformed into another world. Just a mere brat, I could have easily destroyed him, but I refused to. I want to watch him writhe and struggle in despair as his neck is choked. I want to see him regret in agony, paying the price for his deeds, only to meet his end with unwillingness, just like those NPCs he casually killed. For, overnight, people were shocked to discover that the water flowing from their faucets wasn't water at all. It was blood, thick, viscous blood. Someone had left a faucet running, and the house's floors were flooded with blood, spilling out into the hallway. In his confused dream, he smelled a strong, pungent scent of blood. When he opened his eyes, a metallic sweetness tingled in his throat. Before he could react, a surge of crimson liquid choked back into his nasal passages. Before this person could comprehend what was happening, they suffocated to death right in their own home. This is the first bizarre case of death caused by the Bloodwater disaster. On TV, the host's voice carried a tension of forced composure. "We have not yet determined the cause of this anomaly. This is an isolated case. Citizens need not panic. Relevant personnel are urgently inspecting the reservoir." His reassurance didn't work, as the internet had already exploded, not just in City A where I live, but across the nation, even globally. Blood-red water emerged even from dry desert wells that had no water sources. Apart from the remaining water in this world, there are no clean water sources left. I answered the phone call from my mother. Her tone carried an unusual note of pleading. Rain, do you still have clean water at your place? I glanced at the few barrels of water that had just been delivered days ago and said without changing my expression, no. Why? My mother stammered, and no, it's just, oh. Just tell me straight if you have any or not. Before she could finish, the phone was snatched away by my father. How many barrels of water do you have left at home? Hurry up and send them to your brother's place, he said in an imperative tone. Jackson hasn't bathed for days, and you, as his aunt, don't even feel sorry for him. The water I use to sustain my life, he wants me to use it to bathe my nephew. I find it absurd and ridiculous. If he needs water so badly, then his parents should try harder to find some for him. After all, it's not like there's no way. There is indeed a way. Along with the blood water disaster came a sudden influx of water carriers. They walked the streets wearing masks, muttering strange words. Water, clean water. A bold child stepped forward to ask, only to see them draw knives and slit their own wrists. What flowed out from within was not gushing blood, but clean water. As the news spread, crowds gathered around these eerie water carriers. The water-starved people paid no heed to whether drawing water would harm the carriers' bodies. They even brought their own knives to stab into the water carriers' bodies. All who obtained the water left with smug satisfaction, but not long after, those who came into contact with the water died at home, some with ruptured intestines, others covered in festering sores. The remaining people felt a survivor's relief. Grateful they hadn't harmed themselves by fetching water, experts worked around the clock to study these eerie water carriers, desperate to extract from their blood the secret to immunity. Before the results come out, even if people know how to fetch water, they wouldn't dare act recklessly. My father sensed my malice and began shouting angrily, all you know is how to argue back. At this critical moment, families should help each other. Let's see if your brother will lift a finger when you're dying of thirst. Just wait to die at the hands of those water delivery workers. Why do you assume I'll die? Father, I found it amusing. Do you know what else those water delivery workers often say? Praying for rain. This gloomy sky is overcast, yet stubbornly refuses to shed a single drop. I want it to rain even more than those weirdos do. I shook my head. No, they're not praying for rain. They were calling my in-game name. Rain. 5. Before the water supply ran out, I left home to find those water delivery workers. Hey, listening to you guys keep talking. Are you thirsty for water? I shook the bucket in my hand, signaling them to come and drink. The masked water carriers paused their steps, tilted their heads to look at me, then hurriedly gathered to drink. Water, clean water. This phrase wasn't about them delivering water. They were just too thirsty and asking passers-by for help. After drinking half the bucket of water, they looked at me somewhat sheepishly. We've finished all your water. What will you do now? One person extended their wrist and said anxiously, we'll give it back to you. We have plenty of water in our bodies. Don't worry, you won't die of thirst. I smiled and asked, if I drink your blood, will I die? He shook his head desperately, and no, those who died were the ones who refused to give us water. You're different. You're a good person, we won't harm you. I still didn't move. Then if I drink your blood, will you die? The man puffed out his chest proudly. No way, we're strong. If it's just a little, we can recover completely. Hearing him say this, I brought all these water delivery workers back home with me. There were so many of them that I poured a full 10 buckets, and even went out to give some to the scavenging elderly nearby. One good turn deserves another, without giving. One seeks to take from others. Isn't it only natural to face retribution then? How can someone not understand such a simple truth? I stopped by the grocery market on my way. The usual hustle and bustle was gone, with only a few scattered stalls remaining. The lobsters and king crabs that used to fetch high prices were now foaming in dry tanks, cheaper than a wild weed. I bought a lot to take home, and the water delivery workers happily feasted. The room was filled with the aroma of butter as they devoured the food, their eyes sparkling. Ma'am, you're so kind, such a good person, and your cooking is delicious. It reminds me of someone else. I knew who they were referring to, but didn't respond, just gently ruffled their hair. I also received news from my brother's side. I heard they initially splurged on water, convinced I would come to deliver more. After I refused, they turned to malicious intent. My brother forcibly broke in, violently assaulted the lone male neighbor, and stole his meager remaining water supply. Without water, the young man slowly died at home, with the stench of his corpse lingering daily. He was just an ordinary office worker employed at a nearby factory. In this bustling city, he was a stranger with no relatives or friends, even if he died violently at home. The news would take a long time to reach distant provinces thousands of miles away, my brother said triumphantly. Insignificant ants like these are easiest to handle after this disaster passes, even those seeking revenge won't know what hit them. The picture he posted on his social media was of my nephew taking a bubble bath. He played with the rubber duck in the water, displaying an innocent demeanor, completely unaware of worldly affairs. Water obtained at the cost of others' lives was being wasted like this. I lit a stick of incense on behalf of that young man, my naive elder brother. How could you think there was only the disaster of bloody waters? 6. After half a month of gloomy weather, there finally came an exceptionally heavy rainstorm. The rain poured for 7 full days, and the river water became clear again, as if the once thick blood-red waters were just an illusion. Meanwhile, people were astonished to discover that after the heavy rain, the land suddenly teemed with countless frogs. They densely covered every corner, their skin marred by ugly scars, their cheeks puffing rhythmically as they emitted deafening rhythmic cries. Frogs, frogs, frogs everywhere. There were simply too many. Terrified and horrified, the city launched a massive frog extermination campaign, yet every man who came into contact with the frogs found his belly slowly swelling up like a balloon, as if some life was gestating inside. The second calamity, the plague of frogs, descended in an utterly terrifying form. My brother also joined this bloody campaign, bringing along my nephew. My brother taught my nephew from childhood that true manhood lies in understanding slaughter. They killed so many frogs that their bellies swelled larger than other men's, like carrying multiple fetuses, ready to burst at any moment. My brother was nearly desperate, and my nephew clutched his swollen belly, wailing in terror. My mother was so panicked that she called me for help again, asking me to think of a solution. I scoffed and casually lied. What can I do? I can barely take care of myself. There were so many frogs that they even crawled into the house through the exterior pipes, leaving sticky mucus everywhere. But those water delivery workers were still staying at my place. When they saw the first frog crawling in, they filled a vat with water on the balcony. It wasn't clear water flowing from the tap, but blood from their slit wrists. They said even though the blood flood had passed, the curse on the water source remained. Ordinary water is useless for these frogs, only unpolluted water will do. At the sight of this basin of water, dense crowds of frogs leaped into it. My house remained dry and comfortable. I didn't go out, surviving on the food I had stockpiled during the previous bloodwater disaster. Perhaps my balcony was too clean, making someone notice something unusual. Knock knock knock. Someone knocked on my door. 7. Through the peephole, I saw many men with swollen bellies. I asked calmly, "Can I help you? Please help us, these frogs have ruined us, ma'am. You can't just stand by and watch us die. Open the door for us." I saw familiar faces, including residents of this building. They were certain I was a defenseless woman living alone, which is why they dared to come looking for trouble. I directly refused them. "Sorry, I can't open the door. There are frogs everywhere outside." It's terrifying, seeing that I wasn't fooled. They began roughly using tools to bang on my door. "You selfish bastard. You knew the solution for the frogs but kept it hidden from us, didn't you? A weak little bitch like you, acting all tough here. You probably don't even know there's another solution, do you? We're being merciful by not using that method on you, so don't push your luck. I know what they're talking about. This is the only method recently discovered by accident that can counteract the side effects brought by the frog plague. Only men carry frog eggs, and to resolve this terrifying disaster, they simply need to have sexual intercourse with a woman to transfer the eggs into her womb, making her bear the burden. Many heartless men, to avoid suffering, either force or deceive their wives and mothers into taking on their burden. Some even take to the streets or break into homes to hunt for female victims. That's how my brother made his wife take on his suffering. His belly had shrunk, but his nephew was too young, and there was no solution in sight, which is why he had been so anxious. The man outside the door was cursing while taking action. I watched quietly through the peephole without responding. The NPCs behind me were clearly angered by the group's inexplicable provocation. They don't care about their own injuries, but when they see someone trying to harm me, their facial expressions twist with extraordinary fury. A female warrior approaches carrying an ancient giant axe that appeared out of nowhere, about to turn the door handle, but I stop her, shake my head at her, and make a SHHH gesture. "It's all right, sweetheart, just watch." 8. Sure enough, those men collapsed backward as if exhausted after just a few strikes. They seemed unaware of their terrible physical condition, still believing themselves as invincible as they imagined. My stomach hurt so bad. Within seconds, their faces turned pale, dripping with cold sweat, and they began screaming in agony. Everyone was writhing in pain on the ground, their desperate screams and wails nearly shattering the ceiling of the hallway. Only then did I open the door with a smile. "Don't you understand basic scientific knowledge? Don't you know pregnant women shouldn't engage in strenuous exercise?" The men on the ground were completely exhausted. Yet still stubbornly struggling. What nonsense are you spouting, you witch, you devil? How could a man possibly get pregnant? Damn you and your pregnant women. I watched the large pools of blood spreading beneath their trousers, shook my head, and said regretfully, originally, if you had just stayed quietly at home, nothing would have happened. Even if you killed the frogs, as long as you expelled the frog eggs, you would have been fine. The so-called curse-like suffering you're enduring is merely the inevitable path every pregnant woman must take, yet you're all so impatient, rushing around trying to solve it immediately. Well, this is it. The baby is going to be miscarried, but there are no doctors here. No one will help resolve your accident. Even if there were doctors, if they asked me to choose between saving the mother or the baby, I would definitely say, in their eyes that still held a glimmer of hope. I cruelly delivered the final verdict. Screw you bastards. Those people heard my words, their eyes bulging with rage, yet powerless to stand and fight back. Suddenly, the man writhing in pain on the ground stopped moving. He saw the water delivery workers at my doorstep. Both men and women had identical faces, staring fixedly at the group of people on the ground. They pointed at me and screamed in terror. It's those monsters with water for blood. So you're the mastermind behind all this. You're in league with them. You're the one who brought the calamity foretold in the scriptures into this world. You deserve to die. I lowered my head, watching their death throes with great interest. Do you really think it's my fault? Without your desires, how could sin ever take root? I watched as they took their last breath before me and let out a light chuckle. Don't worry, this is just the beginning of my revenge. 9. The men who came looking for trouble could recognize this as the calamity foretold in the scriptures, so naturally others noticed it too. Netizens have sparked large-scale discussions about these two sudden disasters. The first disaster was the plague of blood, the second was the plague of frogs. Haven't you heard the story of the 10 plagues of Egypt? It's terrifying, and this is only the beginning. I've heard of the 10 plagues of Egypt, but not from any religious scripture. It was from a very obscure niche game. I know. Is it Apocalypse? The Revelation. That game was so mystical, opening with something like "Please play seriously, because the game world will merge with reality in 8 years." I remember this game too. It's about surviving 10 plagues with a group of indigenous people and then rebuilding their homeland. But it was so long that I never made it to the later parts. Why bring up games when the discussion is about disasters? LOL. Do you actually believe game worlds could merge with reality? Because the scripture's prophecies didn't mention those water carriers from the blood water plague. Don't you think their appearances are strange? They all look exactly the same, like NPCs in a game. By sheer coincidence, they stumbled close to the truth. However, this discussion did not attract much attention. After confirming that it might be the 10 plagues of Egypt descending, all departments began preparing preventive measures for the upcoming disasters. While they were taking action, I was at home repairing the game console. Ever since I picked it up, I haven't stopped working on the repairs. The game console was smashed to pieces, but fortunately all the core components were intact. The reason I picked up the game console again was because I knew the root source of the disaster lay within it. As long as I load the save file and turn off the disaster, I can prevent the subsequent events from happening. But just as I finally fixed the console and was about to re-enter the world, I felt a heavy shadow cast behind me. I realized all those NPCs were silently staring at me from behind, their expressions carrying a subtlety unlike any ordinary day. It suddenly dawned on me that they didn't realize it was my nephew who had carried out that massacre against them, in their memory. It must have been me who betrayed them. 10. Someone even raised a giant axe, trembling as they approached. I silently took a step back, contemplating how to explain the situation. They got ahead of me, making indistinct sounds in their throats. Rain. Are you Rain? Their faces looking at me were all identical, creating an oppressive terror. I remained silent under this pressure for a long time before finally admitting it outright. It's me, but I didn't do the things that hurt you. I was prepared for them not to believe me and to retaliate against me, but those dark, shining eyes looking at me showed no trace of hatred or similar emotions. On the contrary, they gradually filled with tears. Thank goodness, you're okay. Unexpectedly, they rushed over and hugged me tightly, one embrace after another, warmth radiating from where our skin touched. So comforting. We knew you wouldn't do such a thing. So we were terrified, not knowing who was threatening you. I came to this world, just to make sure you're safe. The female warrior who raised the giant axe swung the massive weapon again, looking at me with her wet, gleaming black eyes. If anyone bullies you, use this to chop them down. So they raised their weapons not against me, but against my enemies. A bittersweet ripple stirred in my heart. You don't suspect me at all. Aren't you afraid I might have really betrayed you? They shook their heads vigorously. Speaking in perfect unison for the first time, we've been close friends for so many years. How could you ever treat us badly, friend? This word gently plucked at my heartstrings. In the long, unaccompanied years, they were my only solace and refuge. They tilted their heads and looked at me. Rain, do you want to re-enter the game to prevent the disaster from coming, even if this world has many bad people, after all? This is still the place where you live, right? I logged into the game, loaded the save file, and shook my head. No one knows that as long as the game save exists, I can manually disable disaster permissions to affect reality, but those who deserve punishment haven't met their rightful fate yet, just accelerating the progress of this game to prevent more innocent people from being harmed. 11. The frog plague lasted for 10 days, while women carry a pregnancy for 10 months. This male pregnancy experience was shortened to 10 days. Including civil servants who participated in the frog extermination, many conscientious men were unwilling to harm others. The pain intensified manifold, but after they expelled and eradicated the frog eggs from their bodies, the frogs vanished completely from the streets and alleys. This was entirely a battle where casualties could have been avoided, yet my brother took great pride in this, claiming he was different from those foolish men. They have wives, yet they refused to let them endure this hardship. How utterly stupid. At worst, finding a random streetwalker would be better than enduring it yourself. I sat on the bench in the hospital corridor and said coldly, "You made your wife suffer for you, so she ended up in the ICU." My brother's face darkened, and just as he was about to scold me, my mother tugged at his sleeve. "Stop fighting over an outsider, you siblings." "How disgraceful," I scoffed. "An outsider? Isn't she my brother's wife and the mother of my nephew?" They all fell silent again, until my nephew was the first to break the quiet. With innocent loudness in his voice, he asked, "If Mom has to stay in the hospital, who's going to cook dinner tonight?" His words made everyone present change their expressions. Even the passing nurses turned their heads and started whispering among themselves. My brother, having failed to vent his anger on me and then being publicly humiliated by his ill-mannered son, immediately flew into a rage and viciously slapped my nephew, scolding, "What a filial son you are! Your mother is sick, and you're still concerned about whether she can cook." My nephew was stunned by the slap and immediately collapsed to the ground, rolling around and wailing loudly, "Grandma's cooking isn't even good. What's wrong with me?" asking, "You all just bully me," as he kept crying. He probably caught sight of me standing by with a cold smile out of the corner of his eye, and stubbornly lunged at me to grab me. In his eyes, Aunt was the least respected person in this family, unloved by father and mother, yet still having to make way for her brother's life, so it's only natural and justified for him to throw a tantrum at me. "It's all Auntie's fault. It's that damn game of yours that made Mom like this." I raised an eyebrow and gave him a hard kick before he could cling to me. 12. Rain, what are you doing? That kick of mine was no joke. My dad, Mom, and brother all rushed over to protect their family jewels. My mom's face twisted like an angry lioness. "Rain, is what the kid said true? I also remember that damn game console of yours. You even went crazy cursing us back then." My brother looked like he wanted to hit me, but he's too concerned about appearances to make a scene in public, so he just hugged his son and started yelling insults at me. His face twisted in disgust. "Rain, I knew you were crazy, but I never imagined you'd be this insane. We should have sent you to a mental institution long ago. Wasn't it normal for you to get bullied at school? Who told you to be such a freak, obsessing over that bizarre game of yours all day? And now you've even developed some delusional disorder. How dare you lay hands on my son? I'll kill you right now." Seeing so many people backing him up, the nephew began tearfully making his accusations. She even threatened me, saying, "Soon it'll be your turn to face the terror of death. She's the real villain here." They all looked at me, and I innocently spread my hands. "You believe the words of a little kid. What I said was just out of anger. Besides, the authorities haven't even announced where these disasters came from. How could I possibly have that kind of power?" Some other patients who had been listening finally spoke up, and one sister couldn't hold back anymore. "How can you have the nerve to bully a young girl like this? A brat like that should be properly disciplined. What are you causing a scene in the hospital for?" She pointed at the burly man beside her, then looked at my brother with disdain. "My husband is 100 times better than a loser like you. He went to help the neighbors exterminate frogs but ended up getting pregnant himself. I took care of him for 10 days while he kept complaining about feeling awful, unlike you, who actually made your wife suffer. How shameless." My brother initially wanted to argue back, but the burly man's physique was equivalent to two of him, like a moving mountain of flesh. He backed down, gave the woman a once-over, and snorted coldly, "Of course, my wife isn't as pretty as you, so she wouldn't fetch as high a price." The once delicate-looking burly man immediately straightened up upon hearing this, clenched his fists, and scowled. "What the hell are you spouting, you wretch? Dare to run your mouth one more time. As sparks flew between the two groups, I slipped into the hospital room. My sister-in-law has been transferred out of the ICU, but it's unclear how much of the outside conversation she heard. That once beautiful and full face had become pale and gaunt. After all this, do you still intend to keep living with him? The person on the bed trembled their eyelids slightly but didn't open them, as if this could help them escape reality. I leaned closer to her and sighed. Marriage is for happiness, and so is divorce. Without another word, I left the hospital room, but the moment I turned away, I thought I saw a clear tear fall from those tightly shut eyes. 13. Thanks to prior preventive measures, the subsequent disasters caused significantly milder effects: the third plague of lice, the fourth plague of flies, the fifth plague of livestock pestilence, the sixth plague of boils, the seventh plague of hail, the eighth plague of locusts. One after another, people survived unscathed and breathed a deep sigh of relief. No one knew this was merely the result of me lowering the game's difficulty. My brother no longer pays attention to these harmless disasters. What's been bothering him lately is that his once obedient wife started demanding a divorce after he was discharged from the hospital. He got beaten up for no reason in the hospital, which already made him furious, and this just made him even angrier. But no matter how he threatened or argued, my sister-in-law would rather die than live with him again. They had a heated argument at home and dumped their nephew, the burden, on me to take care of. My mother secretly made a copy of my house key and barged in forcefully. She rummaged through my things with dissatisfaction. You've made the house a complete mess, yet you say I'm not allowed in. If I don't come in, who's going to clean up for you? Who else has been staying here? I looked at her coldly. A friend. She reacted as if hearing the biggest joke. A friend, Rain. You actually have friends. My nephew giggled too. Auntie's lying. Dad said you've always been a weirdo since childhood, just hiding in your room playing video games alone. How could you possibly have friends? My mother's expression suddenly changed as she scolded. Rain, don't tell me your naive delusions are acting up again, thinking of running off with some random man. I didn't raise you all these years just for you to be taken advantage of by some swine. Her heart ached as she took out all the leftover seafood from the fridge, gritting her teeth in frustration that the food hadn't ended up in her grandson's stomach. Instead of pampering your man with good food and drinks, you might as well spend the money on Jackson. At least our Jackson can support you in your old age someday. Support me in my old age. Will he even live that long? Watching my nephew start eating again as if it were his due, I smiled indifferently. Go ahead and eat. I bought so many hairy crabs and lobsters, there's no way I could finish them all myself. It'd be a waste to just let them sit. My nephew went all out eating, while my mom, thinking she didn't deserve such delicacies, just coaxed him from the side, and all the food ended up in my nephew's stomach. In the middle of the night, my nephew was crying in pain, howling so loudly it woke me up. Between sobs, he yelled, "Auntie is trying to kill me, she poisoned the food. Wah, Grandma save me." A pile of dead shrimp and crabs. It'd be a miracle if eating them didn't cause trouble. I maintained a smiling face. How could you say that, Shabo? Auntie is counting on you for her old age. Why would I ever harm you? My mom got so anxious she called my brother over. My brother frantically picked up my nephew, too busy to curse at me, and rushed out the door as soon as he opened it. I blocked the doorway with my arm. He glared at me. Rain, what are you doing? I spoke calmly. Isn't it inappropriate to go to the hospital at this hour? What do you mean inappropriate? Jackson is sick because of you. Are you trying to kill him now? I'll settle this with you later. I still didn't back down. But the disaster is still spreading outside. It's dangerous to go out. Disaster, those half-baked tricks of yours. I think you've gone crazy from playing too many games. My brother pulled my nephew along and gave me a disdainful look. Rain, you can fool yourself, but don't try to fool me. Jackson said you brought that crap from the game into reality, but even so, you can't do anything to me. Do you think those so-called friends who used to live with you can help you? They just came to take advantage of you before the disaster, and now they've all moved out, haven't they? Besides, someone like you doesn't deserve to have friends. He ignored my attempts to stop him and resolutely rushed out the door. After a moment of hesitation, my mother finally turned back and said to me, Rain, you should go with them too. Seeing that I wasn't moving, she anxiously came to pull me. Like you said, what if there's danger? Shouldn't you help your brother a bit? Don't pull me, I can walk by myself. I frowned and avoided her tugging, flashing an innocent smile before she could get angry. Of course, that's my brother. How could I not go check if he might be in trouble? Only then did my mother follow me out the door. Satisfied, she didn't notice the smile that never left the corners of my mouth. How could I not witness the death of someone I despise with my own eyes? 14. The ninth calamity was the disaster of darkness, the loss of sunlight. People accustomed to electricity didn't seem to face much trouble even after losing daylight, yet darkness can also bring immense danger. In lightless places, it thickens like a sea capable of silently drowning people. On the way to the hospital by taxi, strange sounds came from many unclear alleys on both sides, crunch, creak, very loud, as if something was being chewed vigorously. My mother, frightened, hugged my nephew tightly and moved to the middle, making me sit by the window. After finally reaching the hospital, she made me stay behind, terrified that her two precious darlings might suffer any harm. The brightly lit hospital dispelled their paranoid worries. My brother waited for the doctor to examine his son while berating me. My son was only at your place for a short while. How could you let this happen to him? I don't care. You're paying the medical bills and my emotional damages. Got it. My mother stayed silent on the side, seeing she wouldn't intervene. I scoffed. Are we really keeping score between siblings? I didn't mean for Jackson to end up like this. It was Mom who gave him those vegetables. Little did I expect these words to completely infuriate my brother. He sprang to his feet, pointing at me and yelling, "Our family has raised you to this age. How much money have we poured into you? If Mom hadn't accidentally gotten pregnant with you, there wouldn't even be a place for you in this family. All the money you've spent should have been mine. Making you pay back this little isn't even being petty. I haven't even settled all those accounts with you yet." People around us started looking over. My mom tugged at my sleeve, signaling me not to argue with my brother, but I stepped away. "Fine, since you love keeping accounts so much, let's settle them one by one." My brother puffed out his chest and said defiantly, "You're the one who said it counts. Raising you all these years has cost nearly $1 million, right? I'll consider Jackson's medical expenses as rounding off the debt. Go find $1 million to pay me back." He held out his hand to me. "Hand over your bank card. What's the PIN? You can work to pay off the rest you owe me." I blinked. "Even if I owe you $1 million, you owe me $10 million. We can't settle it like this." My brother got agitated. "Where do I owe you money? Do you know how much Mom and Dad have secretly given me? How could you possibly have $10 million for me to owe?" I said calmly. "Your son broke my gaming console. The device itself can cover your measly medical expenses, but the account is worth $10 million. By that calculation, you still owe me $9 million. My brother flushed red with humiliation. "Your stupid game save is worth $10 million. Who knows more about games, you or me?" I shook my head. "You just don't get it, do you? This save file really is worth $10 million. Hand over the cash now, and I might consider letting you off." I looked him up and down and clicked my tongue. "Too bad you've let yourself go, smoking, drinking, and from what sis-in-law says, fooling around outside. Your organs are probably subpar too. Doubt they'd even fetch $1 million if sold." My brother was spoiled rotten since childhood, and hearing me defy him like this almost made him drop dead on the spot. He charged at me with fists flying, while my dazed nephew opened his bleary eyes and screamed excitedly, "Dad, beat her to death, unfortunately." I easily dodged his attack, and his punch landed on the hospital's white wall, making him squeal in pain like a pig. This time, my mother finally stopped being a cold bystander. She shrieked and rushed to shield my brother. With tears and snot running down her face, she pointed a trembling finger at me. "I raised you all these years, and this is how you treat your own family. How dare you, you ungrateful daughter." I couldn't be bothered with their hypocritical act and asked again. "A 10,000-hour game save file. I spent 8 whole years on it. You could say it's priceless. I'm only asking for $10 million from you, which is actually a steal. So you're really refusing to compensate me?" My brother spat in contempt and sneered. "Pay you back? For something you can just replay? What's the big deal? You love that damn game so much anyway, you wouldn't mind playing it for another 8 years. I'd rather die than compensate you." I nodded, completely unfazed by his provocation. "Fine, you said it yourself. Don't regret it." What could I possibly regret? He didn't finish his words, stopping halfway in terror, because the next second, I reached out and clapped my hands. Crash, as my applause rang out. The glass of the fluorescent tubes shattered piece by piece from far to near. The entire hospital was instantly plunged into pitch-black darkness. 15. In an instant, the entire corridor descended into chaos. "What's going on? What happened? Quick, turn on your phone screen. This darkness is terrifying me." My brother yelled at me. "Rain, what did you do? Why did the lights go out the moment you clapped your hands?" I replied with a smile, "Nothing at all." "You wouldn't seriously think it's such a coincidence that the lights went out when I clapped, would you? In your words, I'm just a useless otaku who loves playing games. Since you don't believe games can become reality, what does this have to do with me?" My brother wanted to keep scolding me, but his voice was drowned out by the panicked crowd. The darkness disaster already arrived long ago, but it never affected power supply before. Could this be a new catastrophe descending upon us? Wait, something's not right. Did you all hear that sound? The noisy chatter of the crowd stopped as everyone held their breath to listen. An eerie silence fell, broken only by the discordant wails of my nephew Jackson echoing through the air. Our family drama had already drawn a crowd, and now people started making snide remarks. Whose child has such bad manners? Crying and crying. You'll cry all the luck away. Can you stop making such a racket? There really is something moving over by the stairs. My mother was displeased. Why pick on a child, Jackson? Come here to Grandma. Her words went unanswered as the child's crying suddenly stopped, or rather, another sound answered her instead. Clickety-clack, creak-creak, the furtive sounds we heard while passing the dark alley re-emerged in this confined space, amplified infinitely by the surrounding silence. Someone gulped, their voice trembling. What the hell is making that noise over there? Where are your phones? Turn on the screens. Someone's voice had already cracked. No. Have you tried it yourself? Pressing it doesn't light up. Not a single glimmer, can't see anything. What the hell is over there? Everyone turned to flee, stumbling blindly in the dark chaos, while I stood quietly in place, watching them trip and tumble over each other in their scramble. Honestly, they should be grateful they can't see right now. If they could see what I see, they'd probably be too terrified to even think about running. Frozen in sheer horror. Those eerie NPCs had somehow appeared right beside my nephew without warning. They gripped his cheeks and yanked out the noisy tongue between them. Their hands melted into dark, viscous liquid, and that crimson thing instantly detached. Click, clack, crunch, crackle. It tumbled in the palm, where skin contact should have been gentle, yet produced eerie sounds of sharp teeth gnashing. Before death, my nephew gained the same ability as me to see in the darkness. He saw the faces of those NPCs and realized they were identical to the ubiquitous background characters from the game he had destroyed. Recoiling in terror, I leaned close to his ear and whispered, "Regret it, you can casually hurt them, and they can just as easily hurt you back." My nephew crawled toward me as if seeing a savior, frantically signaling for me to help him. Tears mixed with snot streamed down his plump cheeks, making it impossible for anyone to feel even a shred of sympathy. I shook my head and sighed, repenting now. It's far too late. From the moment you didn't care about destroying my hard work, even felt at ease enjoying everything gained by occupying my resources, you were destined to pay the price for it. Understand? My nephew panicked, crying uncontrollably, yet couldn't make a single sound. Seeing that I couldn't be relied on, he could only desperately crawl towards his father and grandmother. I silently watched as my nephew reached for his father's pant leg. The door was violently kicked open, and the back of his head hit the wall, completely silencing him. 16. The eerie sound vanished, and my brother, unaware of what had happened, excitedly clenched his fist and shouted, "I'm so badass, that filthy thing tried to touch me, and I kicked it away. Damn it, what kind of thing dares to possess me?" But my mother panicked, her intuition telling her this was no good sign. "Where's Jackson, Rain? Have you seen Jackson, Rain? What kind of ghostly act are you pulling here?" Hearing my mom mention my name, my brother belatedly realized, "You're standing right next to him, covering his mouth, aren't you? Don't go scaring people randomly. With so many people here, you're no match." I knew he'd try to frame me, so my voice came from another corner. "Stop talking nonsense. I'm not standing next to him. As for where your son is, I'll kindly tell you the one you just kicked to death was him." My brother froze for a moment, then started cursing wildly. "What nonsense are you spouting? I was clearly kicking a ghost just now, not my son." I shrugged. 75 degrees clockwise. "Why don't you go touch it and see for yourself? Don't be a coward about what you've done." My mother couldn't believe it and suddenly lunged forward, but her hands only met the cold temperature of the small figure, overwhelmed. She broke down in uncontrollable sobs. "Jackson, my dear grandson, what on earth is happening?" She finally turned back to my brother, hitting him while wailing, "You've sinned. Save Jackson quickly." My brother took the motionless child from my mother's hands and froze for a few seconds. Anger, resentment, and malice flickered across his face in a twisted mix. He pulled a blade from his pocket and lunged fiercely toward the direction of my voice. "Let's all kill her together. She's the only one who can see here. It must be her doing. My son didn't die for nothing. Killing her is the only way to break this curse." To be honest, he probably had his guard up the moment I spoke. His ambush was swift and precise. The blade slashed down, splashing warm liquid all over him. My brother casually wiped it away and shouted fervently, "So what if you killed my son?" In the end, I still won this game. I sighed and said, "Unfortunately, this isn't some so-called game, it's stark reality. You always said I couldn't tell them apart, but now it's your turn to confuse them." My brother widened his eyes in disbelief. He was certain that the earlier slash had severed my artery, yet I could still speak perfectly fine. His voice was filled with fear and shock as he staggered back several steps. "A ghost! A ghost! Run!" He grabbed my elderly mother and used her as a human shield, pushing her forward. Already on the verge of collapsing from crying, she fell headfirst from his shove. She finally found the heart to scold this eldest son she doted on, wailing hysterically, "I've birthed a cursed demon come to collect my debt. I deserve to die. I truly deserve to die." She knelt facing my direction and cowed out several times with loud thuds, banging her forehead until it bled. "Rain, if you have any mercy left, please save Jackson. He's just a child, innocent and guiltless. Have some compassion and let him go." I spoke calmly. "Mom, first of all, I didn't kill anyone. It was your son who kicked your precious grandson to death. Secondly, where was his mercy when he was slaughtering the NPCs in my game account? This is all karma, what he deserves." My mother grew frantic. "How can you compare real people to a game? How can you be so heartless? So what if he killed your NPCs? If Jackson enjoyed killing them for fun, let him play." She didn't notice that after these words, the already cold hospital air grew even chillier, sending shivers down one's spine. I laughed. "He enjoys killing for fun, but does he realize that the executioners of these 10 plagues are the very NPCs he's been slaughtering? Have you forgotten that the 10th plague is called the death of the firstborn?" My mother's eyes widened instantly. She suddenly realized she could see again, only to witness a horrifying scene. She watched helplessly as I jumped down from an NPC's shoulder. The tall NPC knelt before me, bowing to kiss the back of my hand while hoarsely murmuring the pronunciation of rain. My mother staggered back a few steps, her legs giving way beneath her. "It's you. These monsters obey you. The game you said would become reality. It's all true. The firstborn's calamity, then your brother and father. They must also," watching her expression of utter regret. I found it amusing. "Of course it's true. The calamity of darkness means eternal days without light, where people gradually descend into despair amidst this chaos until they go mad and perish. Only in their final moments do they gain the ability to see this world clearly one last time. When I encountered this disaster in the game, I died repeatedly, restarting my save file again and again, just to save both myself and the NPCs. Why should the person who destroyed everything so easily obtain the life I fought so hard to preserve?" My mother no longer had time to care about what happened to her nephew. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "If you can only see before death, then, why can I see now?" Her words were interrupted as one of the NPCs approached her. I softly uttered the final sentence, "Because I show no mercy to those who try to kill me." 17. My brother was covered in NPC blood, and skin ulceration was inevitable. He couldn't run far. Moreover, in this pitch-black darkness without a single ray of light, even if he could leave the hospital, he wouldn't be able to hide for long. He must have heard the conversation between my mother and me just now, which also made him realize he'd made a fatal mistake. The 10 disasters don't necessarily occur in sequential order, they might appear simultaneously. He had been careless. But this also means that as long as we survive this calamity, the disasters will be completely over. Ignoring his injuries, my brother stumbled forward, groping his way through the darkness. "I'll get through this. That bitch Rain deserves to die. Once this disaster is over, I'll kill her first. Letting him die like this is so boring." I scoffed at his cowardly, pent-up frustration. "How's the gift for him coming along?" The NPC beside me tilted its head. Rain's words, "We will remember and do well." In the darkness, the sound of chewing was everywhere. My brother thought he was hiding well, but he hasn't been discovered yet. He thought everyone would avoid it like he did, but he didn't expect to be cornered by a group of people at the alley entrance. "We can't let this person die so easily. We must make him wish he were dead." The words they were shouting were exactly what I had in mind. These armed people were the family members of the boy who died because my brother stole water supplies, people he had long forgotten in some corner of his memory. After I sent the evidence to the other party, they were devastated and rushed over overnight, determined to make my brother pay with his life. "It was you who stole my child's water source. Don't even think about living peacefully." Every day I greet the NPCs inside, and for those without names, I've given them code names. Equals // he kept wailing. / isn't all this Rain's doing. How can you guys see anything clearly? This isn't fair. / He didn't know that, apart from gaining the ability to see before death, those who had committed no evil during the previous disasters could also see in this darkness. It was his own wicked deeds that pushed him completely onto the path of no return. As my brother lay dying, I approached him and asked, "Do you regret it?" Hearing my voice, my brother clung to me desperately as if I were his lifeline. "Rain, make them stop right now. They're committing murder. I won't hold Jackson's matter against you anymore. Just save me." He was frantic, but I remained completely calm, saying slowly, "How about trading it for 10 million now?" Willing to make the deal. At this life or death moment, my brother couldn't afford to hesitate anymore. He blurted out desperately, trying to move me, "Deal, deal, deal." The old folks' savings books and property deeds are all in my room's wardrobe drawer, and I know the bank card pin too. It's XXXXXX. That's more than enough for 10 million, originally meant for me. I'll give it all to you now. Just save your brother. The areas where he was splattered by the NPC's blood began to fester and ooze pus, making his beating even more unbearable. Seeing that I made no move to stop it, he panicked completely. Rain, I've given you everything. Don't break your promise, or may lightning strike you down and you die a horrible death. Don't worry, the lightning would strike you first. I noted down the password and smiled. Before, I told you to change it, but you refused even if it killed you. Now that the opportunity's gone, it's gone. You made your own choice. Who can you blame? I watched helplessly as he flew into a rage, only to weakly spit out his last mouthful of blood before going completely still. The family spat one last mouthful of contempt. Curse serves you right, through gritted teeth, then left supporting the victim's portrait. Eventually an NPC cleaned up the scene, approaching to dissolve him completely into nothingness with viscous fluid. After finishing the chewing, it complained to me pitifully, "Taste bad, next time, throw away." I reached out to ruffle his hair, watching as the darkness finally dissipated. Sunlight breaking through the clouds illuminates the ravaged land as if giving it new life. Don't worry, there won't be a next time. I pulled out the game console from my pocket and gave it a shake. Now, let's begin the restoration work for post-disaster reconstruction. The end. Story 2. On the day my son turned 1 month old, the extreme cold apocalypse descended. The sudden drop in temperature claimed many lives, and the entire city was nearly submerged in thick snow. My husband's family used my son to blackmail me, forcing me to go out and search for supplies. Eventually, I froze to death by the roadside. In my final moments, I used my last breath to call my husband, begging him to save me, but he coldly refused. "My wife, just go in peace. I'll burn some extra paper money for you," he said. It was only after my death that I found out the truth. On the day I gave birth, my sister had switched her healthy child with my stillborn, and the father of my sister's child was my own husband. That's when I realized, from the beginning, both families had been deceiving me. They used an illegitimate child to bind me, making me willingly toil and selflessly give. When I opened my eyes again, I was back 1 month before giving birth. "Doctor, help me. I want to induce labor." Looking at my abdomen, stretched and strained by pregnancy marks, the doctor frowned deeply. "Sabina, you're only a month away from full term. I really wouldn't recommend induction at this stage." Seeing that I didn't respond, he continued, "You need to understand. Inducing labor this late in pregnancy can cause significant harm to your body, not just tearing but possibly even requiring an episiotomy." "You, doctor," I interrupted him, looking earnestly into his eyes, "I feel like the child has already died." "What? That's impossible," the doctor exclaimed, disbelief written all over his face. Regaining his composure, he immediately arranged an ultrasound for me. Sure enough, the ultrasound results showed severe umbilical cord entanglement around the neck and insufficient amniotic fluid. The baby had suffocated. The national medical system was interconnected, and the doctor quickly pulled up all my previous medical records. But soon, he looked at the computer screen, puzzled. "Last month during your prenatal checkup, the baby already had the umbilical cord wrapped around its neck 3 times. At that time, we advised your husband to have you hospitalized for a cesarean section. Why did you?" Even though I was mentally prepared, hearing these words from the doctor still tore at my heart. In my previous life, my sister Sabina and I were pregnant around the same time. Sabina was unmarried and pregnant, and she never mentioned who the father of the child was. My husband, Bert, citing the need to maintain the mental health of pregnant women, never let me contact the doctor directly. Any issues were communicated through him and the doctor. Because I couldn't communicate with the doctor directly, we argued countless times, but whether it was my mother-in-law or my own parents, they all sided with him, speaking well of him. After several tugs of war, I believed his nonsense about direct communication with doctors, making pregnant women anxious and even at risk of postpartum depression. On the day of delivery, Sabina and I broke our waters almost simultaneously. We went to the hospital one after the other. I had a cesarean section and gave birth to a healthy 8-pound boy, while Sabina gave birth to a stillborn. After holding the full-month celebration for my son at the maternity center, I was brought back home. Little did I know, as soon as I returned home, the extreme cold apocalypse struck. The extreme cold swiftly turned the vast land into a cold ice cellar, even with the heating running at full capacity. The temperature dial frantically jumped to the highest mark, but it was all in vain. Any trace of warmth was instantly swallowed by the cold. On the streets where people once bustled, only the frozen corpses of stray animals remained, eternally sleeping in the cold, becoming the first victims of the apocalypse. However, under the icy snow, more lethal than the cold was the scarcity of supplies. On the 3rd day of the extreme cold apocalypse, Bert and his son showed their true colors. forcing me to go out and look for supplies. When I refused, Bert took his son to the window, threatening to throw the child to his death. My son was a piece of my own flesh. After carrying him for 10 months and giving birth to him, how could I just watch him be thrown to death? Thus, having just finished my confinement period, I had no choice but to drive my frail body out in search of supplies. The moment I stepped out of the house, the piercing cold wind overwhelmed me instantly. My legs felt as if they were filled with lead, struggling to lift and then fall back down into the thick snow, leaving an uneven trail behind. As the cold wind blew, I instinctively wrapped my clothes tighter around me, the chill penetrating to my marrow, as if it wanted to strip away the last bit of warmth within me. Eventually, I collapsed by the roadside from exhaustion and was frozen to death. Before dying, I managed to call Bert, "Husband, for all the years of our marriage, please come out and save me, bring me back. I'm only 100 meters from our community, you can see me," I pleaded. There was a long silence on the other end of the phone before Bert's indifferent voice came through. "I can't go outside, it's too dangerous." Filled with despair, I said, "How can you do this? I'm your wife, and you're just going to watch me freeze to death." "Wife, life and death are predestined, you can't blame me, go in peace. I will burn more paper money for you," he said coldly. Before I could respond, he hung up the phone. Indeed, I couldn't blame him. If there was anyone to blame, it was myself for not seeing Bert's true nature before marrying such a beast in human clothing. I tried to move towards home, but my legs had lost all feeling from the cold. The air was filled with heavy snow, seeming to bury my last hopes. I opened my mouth, and the cold wind mixed with snowflakes rushed in. My heart was full of concern for my son, and my tears froze instantly in my eyes. As my consciousness faded, I watched the blizzard swirl around me, past warm memories flashed before my eyes, and then I slowly fell, my body blending with the snow, the cold devouring my last bit of warmth. After my death, my spirit drifted back to my home. That was when I realized everything had been a plot. Bert had been involved with Sabina all along. The so-called lack of supplies, insisting I go out to find them, was actually about me searching for supplies for 5 adults, not just Bert and his mother, but also Sabina and my own parents. My parents had known about Bert and Sabina. Switching the child to force me to go out and look for supplies was also their doing. I couldn't understand why, being their daughter as well, I was treated so differently. If they had just honestly told me about the complications with the umbilical cord and the low amniotic fluid, I would have opted for a cesarean section immediately. Then, my child might not have died. They were all murderers. To make way for Sabina's child, they cruelly sacrificed my own, and I, for this illegitimate child, searched for supplies in the extreme cold and blizzard, only to freeze to death by the roadside. I was manipulated by my parents and Sabina before marriage, and after marrying, I was further coerced by Bert and his mother. Reflecting on my life, it feels like a joke. I was merely a tool for all of them. Fortunately, fate gave me a second chance at life. This time, I want to see how these two families manage to live their comfortable, dependent lives in the apocalypse without me. Their easy mark. After confirming the diagnosis, the doctor immediately arranged for me to have an abortion. From the doctor, I learned that I was expecting a daughter. However, Bert had always told me our child was going to be a son. Clearly, he had premeditated plans. Perhaps they never intended for the daughter in my womb to be born smoothly. What he wanted was the son in Sabina's womb who could carry on the family lineage. The anesthesia worked quickly, and when I opened my eyes again, I was already in the hospital ward. Upon retrieving my phone from the nurse, I turned it on only to be bombarded with dozens of missed calls from Bert, my parents, and Sabina. I hadn't informed anyone about the abortion. None of them knew where I had gone, unable to reach me. They were obviously anxious. After all, I was supposed to give birth in a month, and any mishap could disrupt their plans. As I was lost in thought staring at my phone, another call came through. I thought for a moment and then answered the call. Hearing my voice, Bert breathed a sigh of relief. "Where are you, honey? Your phone was off suddenly. I thought something had happened to you. Are you okay? How's our son doing? You know, you're the most important person in our family right now. Nothing can go wrong. Where are you now? Send me the address, and I'll drive over to pick you up." Bert's concern seemed caring on the surface, but it was clear he was more worried about the child in my womb. I felt nothing but hatred for this despicable man, but having just undergone an abortion and soon needing a procedure to clean the womb, I would be physically weak for a while. During this time, as my spouse and with my parents' support, Bert would undoubtedly have the authority to do whatever he wanted with me. Considering various factors, I chose not to confront him directly at this moment but to play along for now. "Honey, I'm at the hospital. Come quickly, our son is gone." "What are you talking about? Honey, what happened to our son?" On the phone, Bert's volume surged as he pressed me to explain clearly, but I just cried, unable to provide any substantial information, frustrated and annoyed. Bert eventually hung up in a huff. There was no need to pretend anymore. I wiped away my tears and lay in the hospital bed checking the balance in my bank account. Both Bert and I graduated from prestigious universities and joined a Fortune 500 company right after graduation. Even though the market is down, our combined monthly salaries still amounted to $50,000 in most families. The wife manages the finances, but in our case, Bert controlled both of our salary cards, initially. I will also inquire about the flow of funds. However, whenever I bring it up, Bert loses his temper and claims that if I don't trust him, there's no point in continuing our marriage. Even my in-laws and parents think I'm being unreasonable. For the sake of peace at home, I've had to swallow my pride and stop asking about it. Looking back now, I feel like my mind was filled with mush. I failed to see such obvious signs of trouble. If he had nothing to hide, why would checking the accounts be an issue? I suspect Bert has spent a significant amount of our joint assets on Sabina. That's probably why he's afraid to let me see them, fearing I'll notice something amiss. I still have a bank card from when I enrolled in university to pay tuition fees. It has 100,000 yuan, which I saved from my part-time job. I've never touched this money, and now it's come in handy. Before long, a severe ice age will arrive. With this money, I can buy enough supplies to keep warm and safely spend my days in a country cottage. A few hours later, I met Bert. Though I had been reborn not long after dying in my previous life, seeing this scoundrel again felt surreal. Bert didn't come alone. Behind him were my malicious mother-in-law and my biased parents. Even Sabina appeared, visibly pregnant and distressed. Upon seeing me, instead of asking about my health, they immediately demanded to know why I had aborted our son. Had I not known the truth from my previous life, their righteous accusations might have made me feel genuinely guilty and at their mercy. This group of people is utterly shameless. Forcibly suppressing my anger, I covered my face, crying and choking out, I didn't want to, that was my child. After the checkup at the hospital, they found the baby had a severe nuchal cord and low amniotic fluid. I had no choice but to opt for an induced abortion. Husband, what's really going on? Didn't the doctors say everything was fine before? I threw the question at Bert, curious to see how he would wriggle out of this one. As expected, Bert's face changed immediately upon my inquiry. Seeing Bert struggling to respond, my mother-in-law rushed over, her face red with anger, and yelled at me, "You have the nerve to ask your husband, you're the mother, the child was in your womb. Shouldn't you be responsible when something goes wrong? I've always said you were a jinx." And others didn't believe me. No, it seems I was right. My grandson was just a month away from being born, and you aborted him. I should kill you for this. My mother-in-law unloaded on me, probably thinking that since I had just undergone an abortion and lost a child, I was in a vulnerable mental state and unable to argue back. But I wasn't going to just comply with her wishes. With tears in my eyes, I responded, "Because I am the child's mother, I understand the situation better. No. I have to ask the doctors who examined me before. It must be their lack of skill that killed my child. Yes, I need to report them to the media and expose them." Saying this, I pretended to be eager to get out of bed. As I expected, Bert immediately stopped me. He was the one with a guilty conscience. If I really went public with a scandal involving a doctor, then he would be the one condemned by everyone. No one is aware that a severe ice age apocalypse is on the horizon. Bert still needs to worry about his reputation. Otherwise, if the matter is blown up and reaches the company, he would definitely be fired. "Rose, you're in such poor health. You need to rest and recuperate in bed," he said to me, feigning sadness and affection. "It's okay that we lost the baby. The most important thing is that you're still here, as long as you're okay." I'm relieved. I'm not a goldfish with a 3-second memory. I haven't forgotten the fierce and aggressive way Bert questioned me when he entered the hospital room, but I don't want to fall out with him right now, so I didn't expose his act. Instead, I weakly let him hold me and murmured, "Mom was right. It was my fault, but I didn't communicate well with the doctor during the pregnancy. No, I still feel there's a problem. I need to see the doctor." Saying this, I started to feel uneasy again in Bert's arms. Despite everything, he couldn't care less about anyone else and shouted at his mother, "Mom, you're a woman too. Can't you show a little empathy for Rose?" My mother-in-law usually dotes on her son the most, but this time, unusually, she started arguing back at Bert. "Did I say something wrong? If it's really that bad, let the in-laws judge." Saying this, she turned her head towards my parents standing at the door, following her gaze. I immediately noticed Sabina's malicious stare. It seemed that she was provoked by the intimate gestures between me and Bert, clenching her fists tightly. I remember Sabina has a habit of getting manicures. Doesn't clenching her fists like that hurt? My hatred for this good sister of mine deepened. To be precise, compared to Bert and his mother, I despise Sabina and my parents more for pushing me into this abyss. Sabina is my older sister. I remember when we were kids, Our parents were busy with work, and I was always the one taking care of her. When I was an intern, my monthly salary was only $2,000, and rent and utilities were significant expenses, but whenever Sabina asked to borrow money, whether I had it or not, I would find a way to give it to her, even if it meant starving at the end of the month, surviving on plain buns and pickles. I never complained. Morally and emotionally, I have done more than enough for this sister, but how did she repay me? Her own sister, she slept with my husband and got pregnant with his child, and then there's my parents. They always told me that although my sister is only 2 years older than me, she has endured more hardships, so I should be considerate and think of her first. Thus, I worked during every school break in high school and college to pay for my tuition. Moreover, after I started earning a stable income, although I didn't live at home, I still gave them 1,000 yuan each month for living expenses. During holidays, I provided them with gifts like red packets, tobacco, and gold, never missing a thing. Neighbors praised me as a model daughter. In contrast, after graduating from college, Sabina neither worked nor pursued further studies, staying at home claiming to be a full-time daughter and keeping company with the family, but they have always favored her, letting me suffer the injustices. Indeed, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Thinking about how they knew Sabina had destroyed my marriage and hurt my family, yet still implicitly allowed it all to happen, fills me with resentment. She built the happiness of her eldest daughter on the pain of her youngest, completely ignoring the whole process. It sent chills down my spine. It was as if I wasn't their daughter, but merely a tool to be sacrificed at any moment. When faced with my mother-in-law's questions, my parents, as usual, put on a pleasing smile and agreed. "You're absolutely right." Then, they put away their smiles and stared at me sternly. "How could you consider abortion without discussing such a major decision with us? Do you even consider us your elders anymore? When will you ever be as sensible as your sister?" Hearing my parents twist the truth, I felt strangely emotionless inside. Perhaps having been through death once, I had long since given up any hope for them. Without hope, naturally, there was no pain. Still, I pretended to be hurt and pointed at Sabina. "Sensible? Your definition of sensible is her getting pregnant before marriage and refusing to say who the father is. You always favored her, and now, when I've just lost my child and am at my most vulnerable, you still use filial piety to pressure me." The more I spoke, the angrier I became. "Fine, since you look down on me so much, take Sabina and the bastard in her womb and get out. Don't ever acknowledge me as your daughter again." As soon as I said the word bastard, the faces of others in the room fell. After all, they all knew whose child was in Sabina's womb. Even Bert froze, but that wasn't surprising. After all, if the child in Sabina's womb was a bastard, then Bert, the biological father, was nothing but a beast. My mother-in-law, unable to contain herself, rushed over to slap me. Luckily, Bert was quick to stop her. To avoid raising my suspicions, he quickly ushered everyone else out of the room. Having broken ties with my parents, I was actually relieved. It spared me from their constant moral high ground and accusations under the guise of filial piety. In the following days, everyone disappeared. I knew they must be figuring out how to deal with the child in Sabina's womb. After all, this time the stillbirth in my womb was aborted early. They couldn't just switch it with another. Naturally, they couldn't give that illegitimate child a legitimate identity anymore. And they still had to consider my presence. After all, Bert's mere affair was one thing, but his affair being with Sabina, if I made a fuss, it would surely attract attention on the internet. Both families, selfish as they were, still cared about their reputations and wouldn't just give up and let others criticize them. While keeping an eye on Bert's actions, I also completed my discharge from the hospital. The doctor still recommended that I stay in the hospital for a while longer to see how my body recovers, but I knew I couldn't wait that long. The temperature dropped day by day, and the hospital saw an influx of patients with colds and fevers due to the sudden weather change. They looked haggard and coughed incessantly. Nobody yet realized that a severe cold apocalypse was approaching. I thought about warning others, but every time I tried to speak, it was as if my mouth was sealed. Unable to utter a word, to others, I appeared to be making a fuss. It seemed I could only change my own fate, not the outcome of the impending severe cold apocalypse. After leaving the hospital, I bought a train ticket to my rural hometown. My hometown was in Phoenix Mountain, which had only been accessible by road 10 years ago. I had to take a train to the county town and then a 2-hour tricycle ride to the village. However, the advantage of being remote was the sparse population. Even with a few households, they were far apart from each other. The house back in my hometown was built by my grandparents. When I was a child, my parents, busy with work and taking care of Sabina, left me to live with my grandparents in the countryside, turning me into a bona fide wild child. I sometimes think that maybe because I wasn't raised directly by them, I wasn't their favorite, but now, none of that matters anymore. Our house was at the southernmost part of the mountain, and even during the coldest winters, it was a few degrees warmer than other places. Originally built to store miscellaneous items and for pickling vegetables, my grandparents had dug a cellar beneath the house to keep out rats. The cellar was dug very deep, requiring several minutes just to climb down. As a child, I used to follow my grandparents down to the cellar, which was not only warm in the winter and cool in the summer but also well insulated. After the extreme cold apocalypse hit, temperatures plummeted to -60 degrees, even with the heater on. The cold was relentless. Fortunately, I had the cellar. As long as I hid there, I could escape the harsh external cold. Dragging my still recovering body, I rented a truck specifically for this purpose. The truck struggled along the empty, frost-covered roads, making a dull creaking sound. Wrapped in a thick coat, my scarf nearly covering my entire face, leaving only my eyes to vigilantly scan outside the window. Arriving at the market, it was a shadow of its former bustling self. The stalls were sparse, and supplies were extremely scarce. I moved between the few stalls, carefully selecting essential living and cold weather supplies. The first thing that caught my eye was the thick blankets. I picked several that were soft and had excellent insulation, thinking they would add an extra layer of warmth on the cellar bed. Next, I spotted some large-capacity hand and foot warmers, which I immediately grabbed. For food, I bought a large amount of high-calorie canned goods, meat, fish, and fruit. I also picked up some durable dried goods like black fungus, mushrooms, and vermicelli. As for drinking water, I bought several large jugs of purified water. Although the cold weather made it easy for water to freeze, I could store them near the fireplace. When selecting cold weather clothing, I took extra care. Besides the thick cotton clothes I already had, I found several long down jackets, ideally those with high fill power and waterproof, windproof fabric. I also picked out several sets of gloves, hats, and scarves. Shoes were crucial too. I chose 2 pairs of snow boots with non-slip soles and thick inner lining, which felt like stepping on clouds and effectively protected against the cold from the ground. If anyone asked, I'd say it was for a video shoot for children in impoverished mountain areas. Since my purchases varied each time and weren't in large quantities, they didn't attract attention. The supplies I bought were enough to last me alone for a year. Soon, I had packed the cellar tightly. Aside from a bed, there was hardly any space left. There was less than a day left until the arrival of the extreme cold apocalypse. At that moment, I remembered the various supplies I had stored at home. Due to the previous pandemic, I had specifically bought several boxes of instant noodles and snail noodle soup. If rationed carefully, they would be enough to last a week. In the previous life, I didn't need to go out searching for supplies so urgently, but Bert, always cautious, had hidden most of the household's reserves. I only found out after my death that he did all this for Sabina and my parents. Bert had rented an apartment right above ours for them a long time ago. Every time I went out to scavenge for supplies, Bert would take food upstairs to Sabina and them. Thinking about all this, the hatred in my heart surged again. I made a video call to my mother-in-law, pretending to inquire if the instant noodles at home were still there. Is it expired? If it's not expired, please don't throw it away. I still want to eat it when I get back. I know my mother-in-law has never really liked me. To be precise, she looks down on me. She thinks the junk food I hoard makes me look miserably poor. Every time I drag boxes of parcels home, she slams the door and retreats to her bedroom. This time, just to spite me, she blatantly lied, claiming that all the snacks I bought were expired. Then, on a video call, she threw all the food into a big garbage bag and dumped it into the recycling bin downstairs. Rose, don't take it the wrong way, but I think it's because you always eat these junk foods that you ruined your health and had a miscarriage. When you come back from the hospital this time, I'll find you a traditional Chinese medicine doctor to properly nourish your body. A slight smile appeared on her lips as if she remembered something, and it looked utterly creepy. I'm not a fool. How could I believe her words? You should know that during my hospital stay, not a single person came to take care of me, even Bert. Using the excuse of being too busy with work, couldn't make it. He claims his love constantly, yet he refuses even to visit me at the hospital. But perhaps it's for the best. I don't have to pretend in front of him, otherwise, I'd be sick every day. After saying all this, my mother-in-law finally remembered to ask when I was coming home. Pretty soon, I'll come back when you're all gone. Looking at the conspicuous black plastic in the green garbage bin, I slightly curled my lips. Even now, my mother-in-law hasn't noticed the peculiar growth quietly emerging behind me. After hanging up the phone, I leaned back as if relieved, collapsing onto the big bed behind me, enjoying the moment's peace before falling deeply asleep. The next day at noon, I was rudely awakened from my sleep by the howling wind and snow outside. Rubbing my sleepy eyes, I checked my phone and realized it was already noon. I got up and looked at the surveillance footage outside. watching the heavy snow fluttering down, covering the world in ice overnight, glancing at the weather forecast. The temperature hit -70 degrees straight into my eyes, cold enough to kill most living beings. It was then that people woke up as if from a dream, realizing that the extreme cold apocalypse had arrived, and the once familiar warm world had been encased in ice, replaced by endless cold. I brewed a cup of steaming hot tea, the fragrance of the tea wafting through the cellar. Then I started to prepare a small hot pot. Just as I was about to enjoy my meal, a video call notification popped up on my phone screen. I glanced sideways and clearly saw the name Bert displayed. As soon as the call connected, he immediately asked anxiously, "Rose, where are you now? The doctor said you had already been discharged. Why didn't you tell us? The TV said the extreme cold apocalypse has come. Come home quickly. We need to be together as a family." He stared intently at me, spotting the hot tea and hot pot in front of me, and was momentarily stunned. The next second, he licked his lips and finally revealed his true intentions. "When you come back, bring some food and drink with you. We've run out at home." After marrying Bert, all the household responsibilities fell on me. Even shopping for groceries, a trivial task, was left to me. I've been in charge of everything all along, even after I got pregnant. I still had to frequently use my phone to order groceries online to be delivered to our home. I've been staying in the hospital lately, too busy to attend to minor household matters. I presume they must have nearly depleted everything in the refrigerator by now. No wonder Bert was still in the mood to ask when I would return home as Sabina's due date approached. I raised an eyebrow. "By the way, why don't you just let me take care of Sabina's child too while you're at it, now?" With the harsh end times upon us, I'm hiding in a cellar deep in the mountains, hundreds of kilometers away from Bert. Unless he can trace me through the internet, there's no way we can meet. Since we can't see each other, I don't need to worry about any danger Bert might bring, and I'm free to say whatever I want. Bert's face suddenly changed. "Rose, what do you mean by that? We're at this point now. There's no need to play dumb." While I was talking to Bert on the phone, I picked up the tablet from the bed and opened the surveillance software. I had installed this surveillance system when I was pregnant. I didn't expect it to come in handy now. Turning on the surveillance, I instantly saw 5 people sitting in the living room, surprisingly unified. They were still able to stay together at this time, probably not expecting the surveillance. Bert was still being stubborn. "Honey, your sister and I are innocent. Don't slander me. I can swear to you. If I am unfaithful, let lightning strike me. Let me die a horrible death. Is that good enough? Come back soon. We're starving. A tree without bark will surely die. A person without shame is invincible." In front of others, Bert dared to make such a vicious oath, which was quite an eye-opener for me. I didn't want to beat around the bush with him and straightforwardly said, "Bert, do you really think I don't know that Sabina's child is yours? You all have been hiding it from me, expecting me to be your lifelong beast of burden for free. Well, dream on, and you expect me to bring you food. Don't even think about it. What makes you think you deserve it?" At these words, my father was so angry he began stomping his feet. "You ungrateful girl, do you want to starve your mother and me? I'm telling you, come back here and buy all the food you can on the way. If not, your mother and I will act as if we don't have a daughter like you and cut ties with you, all my life." My father had a temper, and I was no stranger to being hit, but every time after he hit me, my mother would cry next to me, sobbingly telling me that deep down, my father loved me. Before my tragic death in my previous life, I had always brainwashed myself to believe that, but now, having already died once, I should be wiser. Even if I was once foolish and naive, the truth is, my father simply disdains me. He doesn't like me as his daughter, so no matter what I do, it never pleases him. Even if I do well, it's taken for granted in his eyes, but if anything is less than perfect, he spares no effort in criticizing me. However, he can only act this way because he relies on my affection for them, but this affection has long evaporated along with their bias. With a smirk, I retorted, "Now you remember you have a daughter like me, huh? Is our eldest daughter not of any use?" he asked. "Can't she go out and buy food for you? It's too cold outside, and your sister is pregnant. What if something happens to her?" My mother's voice timely interjected from the side. Hearing her words, I couldn't help but laugh. So they knew it was cold outside too, but what about me? Am I some kind of superhero, immune to the extreme cold? I had just had a miscarriage. In my past life, they consumed the supplies I left behind without a single thought for me, never asking if I was scared of dying. They were the ones who killed the me who had once devoted everything to them, this life. They have woven their own trap. I didn't respond to my mom but changed the subject. "By the way, I remember stocking up on plenty of instant food at home. If you're hungry, why don't you just eat those?" Bert immediately perked up, asking me where I had put the stuff. Watching the silent, speechless mother-in-law on the monitor, I suddenly stopped talking. No, it was everyone else's turn to panic. Even Sabina came running out, pleading with me, "Rose, this is a matter of life and death. There are so many of us in the family, please don't hold grudges now, you're so kind, I believe you won't just stand by and watch us die, right? Just hearing Sabina's voice made me feel nauseous, but faced with her sincere plea, I nodded. You're right, people should be kind. However, I suddenly remembered that when I called Mom yesterday to ask if any of that food had expired, she had thrown out all those boxes of instant noodles, vermicelli, dried fruits, potato chips, and bread. Bert. Life and death are predestined, you can't blame me for this, I'll burn some extra paper money for you. After that, I hung up the phone. I then turned on the sound of the surveillance, only to hear everyone hysterically yelling at the mother-in-law. They blamed her for losing the supplies, forcing her to go downstairs in the blizzard to retrieve them, but our neighborhood's garbage bins are cleared by sanitation workers every 2 hours. It had been a night since then, the items were long gone, and there was no way she could retrieve them, but the others didn't care. They blamed the mother-in-law for their loss, forcing her to go out into the storm. Throughout the ordeal, no one spoke a word, but their actions said everything. In Bert's eyes, his own life was clearly more important than his mother's. A middle-aged woman who had never suffered in this way, she cried and screamed in the stairwell, begging Bert to let her in. Unfortunately, Bert didn't agree, with no other choice. The mother-in-law tentatively stepped out of the residential area. 3 hours later, she still hadn't appeared on the surveillance footage. Unsurprisingly, she probably died out there. The lack of supplies made everyone unwilling to be the one sacrificed, and the atmosphere inside the room instantly became tense, eventually escalating into a chaotic brawl. Shouts and curses intertwined. In the chaos, Sabina was pushed and lost her balance, her abdomen harshly hitting the corner of the table. The sudden severe impact caused her to bleed profusely, the stark red spreading in the cold air, a shocking sight. Filled with terror, Sabina screamed desperately. Begging everyone present, she begged them to take her to the hospital, appealing to their past friendship. However, Bert just watched coldly, expressionless. Even her own parents chose to remain indifferent. In the end, Sabina bled to death, perhaps driven by a twisted desire to avenge his biological daughter. My father, in a fit of rage, grabbed a knife from the kitchen and charged at Bert, trying to force him to go out and find supplies. But how could a middle-aged man's strength match that of the young and robust Bert? After just a few exchanges, the knife was easily wrestled away from my father by Bert. Perhaps acting on instinctive self-defense, Bert chose to fight back. The gleam of the knife flickered in the dim room, followed by screams. The other 2 living persons in the house, besides him, also fell into pools of blood. In the surveillance footage, I saw Bert dragging the bodies of 3 people slowly into the kitchen, and I could guess his intentions. I couldn't bear to watch any further, not even a glance. With trembling hands and suppressing the nausea in my heart, I extracted everything recorded by the surveillance and sent it to the police. 1 month later, I was awakened from my sleep by a wave of heat. I quickly crawled out of the cellar. I didn't go straight to the surface. Instead, I cautiously peeked out, scanning the outside. The sky was clear. Then, beams of sunlight so dazzling that it was almost blinding hit the windows, refracting into a kaleidoscope of colors. The sun is out, I couldn't help but exclaim softly, a joy of surviving disaster flooding through me. The land, once frozen, began to slowly wake under the gentle caress of the sun. The harsh cold apocalypse had finally come to an end. I lay at the entrance of the cellar, basking in the warm sunlight, feeling a mix of emotions. 3 days later, I received a call from the police station. It turned out that the video I had sent them had caught their attention. Once the cold apocalypse ended, the police acted immediately, apprehending Bert. With multiple lives on his hands, Bert was sentenced to death. He had survived the apocalypse with those 3 bodies, but he couldn't escape the long arm of the law. As a survivor, I inherited the estates of both families. I planned to start a life of traveling far and wide. How wonderful the sun is, shining light into my heart. After surviving this harsh apocalypse, I will live as I please in the days to come, without self-destruction, ready to go mad if necessary. I will live according to my own heart, joyfully and fully.